interesting new study has looked into the Medicare system and how, wow, what a shocker. Turns out that Medicare overpays for prescription drugs, particularly generic prescription drugs, which are supposed to cost less. And I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out why that happens. Medicare is not allowed to negotiate drug prices directly with pharmaceutical companies. In fact, the Build Back Better agenda was supposed to allow for Medicare to do just that. But of course, corporate Democrats, including those who absolutely love helping the private healthcare industry and helping pharmaceutical companies, they defeated that provision before defeating the entire bill altogether. Now, I want to talk about this study from researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. They found that Medicare could have saved up to $3.6 billion in 2020 if they bought generic drugs at the prices paid by Mark Cuban's drug company. Do we have to take a break, guys? Or can we keep going? Oh, okay, sorry, I thought you guys were trying to tell me to take a break. Okay, so they're specifically touting Mark Cuban's online pharmacy. And to be sure, and let's call a spade, for now, Mark Cuban's online pharmacy, which has a limited number of generic drug offerings, is cheaper than going through insurance, going through the models that have been pretty terrible. However, it's also a private company that has venture capitalists behind it, and venture capitalists, I don't know, Woz, what do venture capitalists like to do?
They like profits. So if it's cheap right now, that doesn't guarantee that it's gonna be cheap. They want profits, and they want them now.
Yep, that's right. Now, the study nonetheless continues to say that the 3.6 billion in savings amounts to 37% of the 9.6 billion that Medicare spent on the 89 drugs examined in the study. There were savings to be had on 77 of those drugs and 12 with no savings. And then, according to The Hill, they compared this model to Mark Cuban's private model. The Mark Cuban cost plus drug company launched online at the start of this year, and it seeks to simplify the convoluted supply chain for drugs, because that's the problem, was it's the convoluted supply chain for drugs, and offers savings to consumers. No mention, of course, of the fact that Medicare can't negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, but nonetheless, it offers commonly used generic drugs at a 15% markup, plus a 3% dispensing fee and $5 shipping fee. It does not accept insurance, meaning patients would have to pay out of pocket. Wow, it sounds like a great model, right? As long as what they're offering is in fact affordable. But there's no guarantee that this model will offer affordable pharmaceutical drugs in the future, especially if it is backed by venture capitalists who want a return on their investment, okay? I just want people to be smart about this. Now, I was also curious about who did this study. Who supported this study financially, like who paid for the study to happen. And if you go to the actual study, and this wasn't noted in any press reporting on it, but if you go to the original study, it says that the financial support for it comes from Arnold Ventures. Arnold Ventures, okay. So I initially thought that this was a group of venture capitalists who had invested in Mark Cuban's venture, but they describe themselves as a philanthropic group that gives grants. So that's a little different from investing in a company seeking a return on investment. But I also, did a little more digging. So let's take a look. I wanted to know exactly how much money they gave in the form of a grant to Brigham and Women's Hospital, which of course did this study. The supporting, so they gave $2 million. $2 million, it's a grant that is from 2020 to 2023 to support the program on regulation, therapeutics, and law project on prescription drug policy. And these are billionaires, by the way. It's a billionaire couple behind this venture. And notably, they're not talking about negotiating drug prices. They're not talking about, hey, maybe a private model with venture capitalist backed, businesses offering drugs. Maybe that's not the right way to go, because eventually Who's gonna stop them from price gouging us? Who's gonna stop them from charging exorbitant fees as soon as you dismantle a public system like, let's say, Medicare from covering pharmaceutical drugs? To me, this is more about how the media withholds that information, which I think is very relevant to the story.
Yeah, I don't understand how a for-profit model is supposed to somehow be beneficial to the people whose healths are on the line, right? Like the idea that, like, just remember Martin Shkreli. Like that didn't go completely off the rails or completely off the hook immediately. We have countless examples of this, and I think that was one of the main parts of Bernie's platform when he was talking about Medicare for all in both 2016 and 2020. And your viewers will have an idea of this. Is like, yo, because we're the biggest buyer, we're a bulk buyer as a country. If we subsidize people's healthcare, we can get stuff for cheaper. That we can get stuff for way cheaper that we're getting right now, and it will offset a lot of the costs associated with providing healthcare. And it's not like this model doesn't exist in other very rich, prosperous countries. We see this all over the place in the quote unquote developed world, but for whatever reason, our government is just wholly captured by these business interests, and they're just like, no, we need to be able to profit off of your granny's heart medicine, because America just couldn't be America, Anna, if you couldn't turn a buck on older people and sick people trying to stay alive.
It's the American dream. Gouging elderly people for life-saving medication, American dream. No, and look, the other thing that really stood out to me was how publications like the Wall Street Journal used this, obviously, like, it's funded by a group of people who don't like the bureau, like they complain about the bureaucracy of our current public healthcare system in Medicare for all, right? So they argue, well, look, why don't we encourage Medicare, like the Medicare system, to purchase these pharmaceutical drugs directly from Mark Cuban? From Mark Cuban, right? Wouldn't that be super convenient for Mark Cuban? Which, by the way, he loves that idea. I'm a little suspect in regard to whether or not he has anything to do with helping publish this kind of study. But notably, he tweeted it out immediately and said this: hey, Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, Pelosi, Sanders, Ron DeSantis, AOC, just including all of these politicians. Have your people call my people and let's get this done. Come on, funnel that Medicare money over to me. Buy the drugs directly from me. I'll do it. I'll give you a good deal. I'll give you a good deal. This is the real solution, right? Further privatizing a model that has been completely broken and destroyed by private business interests.
Yeah, I just don't understand how anybody could fall for this. And I think the reason why they've struggled with this in the past is that people like Medicare. They love it. They love it as a service. That's why it's become so untouchable. They also love when people get their Medicaid. They love it as a service. Nobody's like, oh, the bureaucracy of Medicare. If only we would just have some private company come in and do it. Nobody feels that way. And so I feel like this is gonna be a tough sell because the American people actually enjoy Medicare and how it works. And I don't know that they necessarily want Mark Cuban to become their new drug pusher.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope. When I originally covered this story, someone got very upset at me, accused me of being a communist, and stated that I shouldn't be allowed to host the show anymore. Wow. So we'll see how that all plays out. It might have been Mark Cuban himself, who knows? But that is what is taking place with this whole broken Medicare system, not Medicare system, but broken pharmaceutical, system. All right.